We welcome you and call to order the meeting of February 14th of the Port Orchard City Council. Before we get started, I'd like to state our guiding principles. In the actions we are about to take, are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? Is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item we're dealing with tonight is approval of the agenda. Do we have an motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Cucciardi, sorry, I did it again, and a second by Councilperson Lucarelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? The agenda is approved as written. We are to our first citizens' comment opportunity. I see no one in the audience. Randy, do we have anybody online?
We do not.
Not, so seeing that and hearing that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilperson Clausen and a second by
I think I edged him out.
Yep, Mr. Councilmember Diener.
Councilmember Diener. Do we have any discussion? All right, seeing none. We'll be voting on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Since we have no presentation tonight and no public hearing, we're going to move right into our business items. Business item A is an adoption of an ordinance establishing a low-income discount utility program. Mr. Crocker, I think this one's yours.
Thank you, Councilmember. Before you tonight is business item 7A, and this is the adoption of an ordinance establishing a low-income discount utility program that we have previously discussed. The low-income discount applies to residents of the city of Port Orchard with a maximum annual household income at or below 125% of the federal poverty guidelines at the time the applicant applies for the rate reduction. Residents interested in the program would fill out an application form and schedule an appointment to meet with the utility clerk to review and evaluate their eligibility based on their income threshold. The Finance Department will monitor the success of this program, report back to the council to determine if modifications should be needed to the program. The discount will provide a 25% reduction from the fixed base rate for water, sewer, and storm. With that, the Finance Department would recommend approval of the low-income utility discount ordinance as presented.
Member Rosapepe?
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt an ordinance establishing a low-income utility discount program.
Second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Rosapepe and a second by Councilmember Clausen. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll be voting on a move to adopt an ordinance establishing a low-income utility discount program. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes.
Mayor Pro Tem, just one comment on that. We talked about, when we've discussed this before, it'd be great in, maybe 6 months to kind of get a report of, how many people are applying, how it's going. Is this enough? Is there more we can do? It's a great start, and I'm glad we're doing it, but it'd be great to keep this back on the agenda in the near term, just to kind of get an idea of how it's playing out. So, thank you.
Thanks for that, Sean. Business item B, adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code Section 10.12.400 to extend payment deadline for parking infractions. Ms. Archer.
Thank you so much. Council, before you this evening is an ordinance amending your municipal code to extend the time period for which a person has to respond to a traffic infraction from 15 days to 30 days from the date of the infraction's issuance. This is a result of state legislation that was effective January 1st of this year, and this request for code modification originated with your court, who noted the statutory change, which has impacted their practices as far as collection of traffic infractions. So this ordinance is a cleanup, and as you'll note in the red lines, it's merely changing 15 to 30. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Lucarelli?
I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code 10.12.400 in response to changes in state law.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Diener to amend the Port Orchard Municipal Code, Section 10.12.400, to extend payment deadline for parking infractions. Discussion?
Sorry.
No discussion? All right, let's call for a vote.
Form of the law.
All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion passes. We're on to business item 7C, adoption of an ordinance adopting Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 1.32, setting the city's compost procurement policy consistent with House Bill 1799. Mr. Lang.
Thank you. In March 2022, House Bill 1799 was signed into Washington law, requiring the diversion of organic materials away from landfill disposal, food rescue programs, and organics management facilities to reduce methane emissions, as landfills are a significant source of methane emissions. The legislation urges that as more organic materials are diverted and recycled, it is critical that the compost manufactured be procured by local jurisdictions and others to support the economic viability of these processes and programs. To that end, HB 1799 requires most cities and counties in Washington to adopt a compost procurement ordinance by January 1st, 2023 that detail how the city will consider whether compost products can be utilized in the project when planning government-funded projects or soliciting the reviewing bids for such projects. This ordinance establishes the city's compost procurement policy consistent with HB 1799, codified in relevant part at RCW 43.19A 120 subsection 1. Under the policy, staff will consider the use of compost for public projects, including landscaping and construction, when the use of compost is not cost prohibitive for the project, defined as a product purchasing cost that exceeds 10% of the cost of another product that would serve the same purpose. Staff recommends the council adopt this ordinance to meet the requirements of HB 1799 and set the policy for utilizing compost products in public projects.
Councilmember Chang.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt an ordinance adopting Port Orchard Municipal Code Chapter 132, establishing the city's compost procurement policy.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilperson Chang and a second by Councilperson Diener to adopt an ordinance for the municipal code, Chapter 1.32, setting the city's compost procurement policy, consistent with House Bill 1799. All in favor?
You want to have discussion?
Oh, do we have discussion? Sorry.
Tony, just when it comes to like construction and the use of composting, where, you know, there may be degradation over time and the compaction rates are different, do we still have an opportunity to use other materials when you might be dealing with construction where this stuff will, you know, sag over time? It'll, you know,
Yeah, as long as it's
necessarily
not,
the best construction material, so that word construction is a little bit concerning. So I'm
Right.
just curious, are we painting, does this kind of pin us into a corner at all with any projects?
I don't know if Charlie can speak to that now.
I don't think so. It still gives staff flexibility to make a determination at a policy level as to the best equipment for the particular project.
from a structural integrity, sometimes compost isn't the best use, but landscaping's perfect. But, okay, great. Thank you. Answers the question.
Are there any specifics on that?
That's what I was wondering. What type of material is there? I understand the environmental, landfill, landscaping, but I was curious on the construction, what type of material have you come across that's been compost?
Well, generally, it's our right-of-way cleanup from tree cutting or, stuff that's fallen on the side of the road. We take that to North Mason Fiber. They process it into mulch.
Right.
And then we repurchase that. As far as like wood products from, demolition, that wouldn't constitute, composting.
And then, if I may, then construction specs or construction contracts all have the materials spec'd out what you can use, and this wouldn't meet spec.
Yeah, like the marina would be a good example as far as the landscaping associated with it, that we, as long as it's not cost prohibitive, that we would look into purchasing.
Okay.
Do we know how many local providers, that is within 25 miles, there are that produce?
I looked it up. North Mason Fiber, which is out off of Highway 3 towards Belfair, they are an approved processing facility for Department of Ecology.
Further discussion? Okay, we'll be voting on an ordinance adopting Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 1.32, setting the city's compost procurement policy, consistent with House Bill 1799. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None. The motion passes. We're to item D, approval of the 2023 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Docket. Ms. Archer.
Thank you, Council. Before you this evening is approval of the 2023 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Docket. As you are well aware, when the city reviews its comprehensive plan on an annual basis, that process starts by you setting the docket, which takes whatever applications you've received from citizens or city-initiated requests and consolidates them into a docket or a list of potential comprehensive plan amendments for your adoption towards the end of the year. This is, again, that first step. This year, the only comprehensive plan amendment that was submitted, that was timely submitted, includes a comprehensive plan amendment, or excuse me, a comprehensive plan map and legislative zoning map amendment for properties located along southeast Moline, I apologize, Moline, thank you. Moline Road. And the amendment would change the comprehensive plan future land map use designation of commercial to low density residential for these parcels, and would change the zoning designation of commercial mixed use to residential 1R1. Just a reminder, the land use, the future land use map that's part of your comprehensive plan is your policy level setting as to the designations for these parcels, and then the zoning, the accompanying zoning amendment is your legislative, your operative regulatory tool that always has to come in combination with the comprehensive land map amendment. So that's why you see them both, they're coupled, and they're related to the same request. So again, all you're doing tonight is approving the docket, and that means you're sort of saying, staff, go ahead and continue to work on these requests. You are not approving an amendment to your comprehensive plan, nor an amendment to your zoning map, and this is a purely legislative act. You can do with it what you will. I'm happy to answer any questions. I am sitting in for Nick's team this evening, presenting this, so my knowledge as to the specifics of the application is limited, but I'm happy to take a stab at answering what I can.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Councilperson Diener.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the 2023 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Agenda pursuant to POMC 2004-060 as presented.
Second.
Motion from Councilperson Diener and a second from Councilperson Lucarelli. Is there any discussion on this topic?
This was discussed at Land Use Committee as well, and it takes a whole bunch of non-conforming issues off the table for these homeowners who otherwise were not able to develop or improve their houses, or add on to their houses, I should say, because of the non-conforming status that they had. So this will be very helpful to them. It's about 8 houses and 13 properties, I recall.
Anyone else? All right, we'll be voting on the comprehensive plan amendment docket continuation of that program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion passes as well. We're to discussion items. Ms. Lund.
Thank you, and good evening. On October 26, 2021, the City Council considered and passed a policy revision to require all new employees to provide proof of having at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccination prior to employment, and as a condition of continued employment, receive a second dose within 30 days unless approved for a medical or religious exemption. 24 of the city's current 91 employees were hired under the vaccination requirement. We received no exemption applications. The city, though, no longer tracks the vaccination status of employees under current CDC guidance, as the same protocol applies to all people exposed to the virus, regardless of your vaccination status. The police department in particular has expressed a concern that the vaccination requirement may be negatively impacting the recruitment for police officers, in particular lateral police officers. The department currently has 5 vacancies at the patrol officer position. When all department directors were asked about their feelings toward the vaccination requirement, none of them were opposed to removing the vaccination requirement. Therefore, tonight's item is a discussion item for council to determine whether or not staff should proceed with bringing a proposed policy revision back to you at a future meeting to remove that vaccination requirement. And I know the police chief is prepared to speak to this issue if you'd wish.
All right, we're open for discussion.
I'm happy to begin. I appreciate the report this evening and appreciate and respect our department heads, and I'm happy to hear that you've collaborated, talked about this. I know that the years I've been on council, we've, for example, just calling out our police department of trying to provide them tools to fill our peace officer positions. And while COVID was and still is serious, I think it has changed. I think, you know, I don't know that we're going to change anyone's mind anymore, whether or not they move. To me, it's a little maybe disingenuous to have 91 team members and only 24 of them vaccinated and treat, you know, different people differently. And so I would be supportive of the staff's request to lift that at this time, following CDC recommendations, and treat all of our team members with the same policies.
Councilperson Diener.
I'm happy to concur, and I'm happy to see this go away as well.
Councilperson Rosapepe.
I'll be on the minority, I know that. I would like to say that part of my rationale for this is that COVID is still out there, and having healthy employees, I think, is paramount to be able to provide service. I would be happy to entertain it again when the governor's mandate goes away in June. But right now, 3 schools have been, none in Kitsap, thank God, have been encouraged to start masking again because of the prevalence of COVID. And right now at this time, I would like to continue it's people that are hired, not are existing. Up to this point, you know, we still have applicants coming in for the police department, I believe. We're not, that we're going through. So I'd like to continue the policy until the governor's mandates falls. But again, if I'm in the minority, I will support the council's decision in what we decide.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilperson Clausen.
Yeah, I generally am on Jay's side of this issue, but I think, as Sean has pointed out, the world of COVID has changed significantly, and I'm dealing with this right now at the transit, and we've had within a recent period of time 14 positive cases of COVID in the transit. 12 of the 14 are folks that have been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure if it's as effective as it was at one point. Therefore, I would certainly support the change and go along with the department heads.
Councilperson Lucarelli.
Another thing to bring up, I think, is a paragraph that I didn't hear read, is that the council's guiding principle related to diversity, equity, and inclusion is worth noting because we are trying to have a more diverse, inclusive police force, and it turns out that stats pretty much show that some minorities are behind in some of the vaccinations, so this would perhaps allow us to be more diverse in our hiring for the time being to get a jump on that. So instead of waiting for the governor to change, I would support changing our policy now.
Anyone else on the council? Chief Brown.
Thank you. Yeah, just to kind of answer some of the recruiting issues, we are still seeing applicants. We need to continue to broaden that pool. We regularly are conducting interviews, and just because we have a lot of people applying doesn't mean they are the right people to be Port Orchard police officers. We have committed to having the right people here. I personally know of 3 officers that have wanted to come here and only here. It is a long process to get to the end of that path. They've got to apply, they've got to get an oral board with HR, they have to have an interview with me, they have to have a background investigation, and a poly, a psych, and a medical. And as someone who's been in 5 agencies, that still stresses me out. And to not know whether or not any medical or religious exemption will be granted at the end of that, if they've gone through all of that and told their agency they're leaving, they are not willing to do that. I am aware of a number of anonymous officers that have called Human Resources wanting to know if they can come here, but that is what is holding them back. I think to try and get these 5 positions filled relatively soon, and I know that I sent our statistics from last year to everyone. If we want to continue to move forward, that would be my hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Rosapepe.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to kind of go out of my wheelhouse here and say, I understand where the council's position is, and my question is, what would it take to take action tonight? I know that we could take action in 2 weeks, but I'm going, is it something where we need a formal business option being done, or just merely a motion? Could we move forward?
So I'm going to put Debbie on the spot, but I'll give you a moment to think. The council has the power to modify your agenda to take action on any item this evening. You've offered public comment, so you're allowed to do that. The hurdle becomes drafting on the fly a modification. So that's why I think the ask tonight was for staff to take your direction and then craft the modification to the policy. But if this is a situation where we could wholesale remove a policy, which it is,
Yes.
We could have a motion to eliminate that as a personnel policy. So you would just cite it by number. I think it's 2.4B. So motion of council to eliminate personnel policy 2.4B related to the COVID vaccine mandate.
Councilman Clausen.
Well, I was just, in my mind, and I certainly am not going to challenge our attorney by any means, but making a modification to our policy is, in my mind, significantly different than making a modification to an ordinance or resolution. I've always lived under the assumption that this body establishes the policies, this body can change the policies without, I mean, it takes a majority of the council to take that action, but I don't know that we necessarily have to have something in since we're talking about the elimination of a provision in a policy, not creating something different or new.
I concur with that. Yeah, absolutely. That if it came across as any other different position that wasn't intended. I think I was just sort of buying time as to if additional modifications need to be made, but if it's eliminate a policy, then staff doesn't need to produce anything for you to really ponder, because I think the one hurdle that a legislative body has is acting with a significant or a necessary level of detail. So if you were making a modification, sometimes that can be difficult to translate. But in this case, nope, you could just say eliminate.
Follow-up question would be, not having this policy in front of me, is there more included in the policy, or is this policy specifically related to the requirement to have vaccine?
It is the last page of the packet. If you happen to have the electronic version, it is Part B of Personnel Policy 2.4. So 2.4A we would want to stay, just 2.4B deals with the vaccination.
So if we were to modify the policy, well, basically we would be eliminating the entire policy because it all deals with vaccines.
2.4B, you'd want to preserve 2.4A.
So if we just eliminated 2.4B tonight, we'd be done with this?
Correct.
Fair?
Go ahead, Mr. Councilperson
Well, I
Clausen.
would just get this on the floor to get discussed, I guess. I would move that we eliminate 2.4B in our policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick discussion, and I'd love to, is 2 weeks going to make a difference in the hiring? Probably, I think we're doing this partly for the hiring process. If given a preference, I would rather wait 2 weeks. I like to have an agenda published and people have the opportunity to come and speak on any issue. And it's not been the historical, I guess, and I get it's policy and it's not, but I think this is a big enough issue that if 2 weeks isn't a big deal, so I'd love to hear from Chief or others, but just in transparency, I think this council has done an amazing job trying to be transparent and not trying to, act without constituents having an opportunity to play along. So while I'm totally in favor of eliminating this, I would prefer, if it's not going to create, undue duress, to wait. It's 2 weeks and allow the public to see it and comment.
Any other discussion? Councilperson Chang?
Yes. I understand the impetus for eliminating this requirement, and I'm definitely on the fence because it seems to negate the past requirement to have had the vaccine at all. And I know that's not the intent of the council. So in my mind, there's still some doubt about the spread of COVID and the efficiency of the vaccine. So I'm just going to express my doubt and say that if whatever way the council would decide, it wouldn't be a completely unanimous decision because I have doubts.
Councilperson Rosapepe.
And one of my reasons, Councilmember Cucciari, for bringing this forward now is 2 weeks is 2 weeks, and it gets the word out. And I'm not trying to put pressure on either HR or our police chief, but I'm going to give them all the tools they need to move forward. And 2 weeks is 2 weeks, and people are out there, and work the phones on the way home. That would be my reason for doing it tonight, as opposed to waiting for 2 weeks. And by the way, I do agree with transparency, but I think each of us have heard from numerous constituents of how they feel about the policy over time.
Go ahead, Councilperson Lucarelli.
Well, it was on the agenda for discussion, so it's not like it wasn't published. Another thing is, as Councilman Clausen said, is that many of the people I know who've had COVID recently had all the vaccinations and boosters and flu shots, and it didn't make a difference. So I'm in favor of the vaccinations in general, but I am in favor of eliminating this requirement tonight.
Councilperson Diener.
I just want to say that I agree that it's on the agenda, so we're not being transparent. And, I think this is something that that I have confidence in how this movie were to end if we were to kick it down the road 2 weeks. So I'm comfortable moving forward with this tonight.
Okay, Councilperson Clausen.
Just one last comment, because we've got to make it to 7 o'clock, so.
You guys are pushing me here.
My only thought is that I appreciate very much what you said, Sean, about being transparent. Having said that, though, I'm also concerned that, 2 weeks isn't a super long time, but we might be able to get another officer in here during that 2-week period, which to me, in my mind, is way more valuable to the citizens of Port Orchard than holding on to this particular policy for another 2 weeks. And as Scott mentioned, I think the writing is on the wall based on our discussion.
And I'll just add, because we're not quite there, that we have to operate with a sense of urgency these days when we're trying to get new hires, and that's not just with the cops, that's with DCD. If we can get somebody, we got to get them right away, because it's a very competitive world out there. So 2 weeks is 2 weeks.
Is on the agenda this evening. I was remiss in that, so I will rescind my last statement and be in favor of this evening.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor to rescind the new hire COVID vaccination requirement 2.4B from the policy. Do we have all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
And 2 opposed.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, for the record, I'd like to point out that this was approved at 7:01 p.m. on the 14th.
It was.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councilperson Clausen.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could.
He's new, cutting some slack.
Just to add a comment past
Put it on the record.
past the 7:01 is, I would like to thank HR and all of our directors for this policy while it was needed and supporting it on that. And now go forth and find good people to fill our vacancies. Thank you.
All right, moving forward, we're to the reports of our council committees, and I don't believe we've had any committee meetings since our last council meeting, with the exception of utilities, which happened tonight. Councilperson Lucarelli, are you ready to give us a brief overview?
Well, I'm ready to give it. I actually think I'd prefer to give it at a time when we have more people in attendance. So if you don't mind, I'd like to give that update at our last meeting of the month. Thank you.
That's perfect. And our next item is report of the mayor, and I will report that the mayor is not here tonight. So we'll move on again. Next to our report of the department heads, Mr. Lang, would you like to start?
I have nothing tonight, thank you, but happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
All right, thank you for that. Mr. Crocker?
I also don't have anything other than I did want to let the Finance Committee know I'm going to reach out to the mayor. Right now, our Finance Committee agenda is pretty light for the 21st, and I don't know yet if there's been a decision on the study session for the 21st. So if the study session does get canceled, I will take a close look at that agenda, see if it's worth going forward or not.
I think the study's
Keep an eye on
I
it.
think he had canceled it.
Work
Okay.
studies canceled, yes.
I would expect the Finance Committee to be canceled.
Yeah, and I want to survey the directors first, the mayor, see if anyone else has any topics that they want to bring forward this month, and if not, then we'll cancel it. If they do, then we'll try to find something in next week.
Okay, Ms. Archer reporting for Mr. Bond.
Nothing to report. I mean, that department does nothing, so. Absolutely kidding. That is, no, that department is incredibly busy, as always. And continuing with that theme, while we will not have a study or work study session this month, next month will be a robust conversation both on the Salary Commission, and at my recommendation, we will be bringing you back our trespass policy or our no trespass policy. We need to have some conversations about some legal changes that have occurred. So that will also be on that agenda. The mayor doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to tell him it's going to be on there. So look for me at your work study next month. I know I don't routinely attend those, so I will be there for that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lund?
I have nothing further tonight. Thank you.
Chief Brown.
You know me, I always have something. It's been probably a good several weeks, so I wanted to give you guys some positive updates. So, as is her usual, Sergeant Donna Main has again received the 2022 Best Police Officer Award. I'm pretty sure that she's just the ringer at this point. She pays people, but she is pretty fantastic. Officer Amy Allen is now off of probation. She was off probation on Friday, so we're continuing to move forward with people that are excited to be here and are staying with us, which is great. And then Officer Sarter, who came to us as a lateral from Lacey, she had actually been interested in applying when I had first gotten here, and that hadn't worked out, so she was hired in Lacey, but wanted to move back. She's from here. She was off field training for about 4 days, and one of our staff came across something that she had done and wrote her up, and I wanted to share that with you. So Officer Sarter made an arrest in a child abuse case, a fairly significant case, and arrested the mother. The mother made some comments in the back of the car, and the Officer Sarter said, well, you know, if there's anything I can do to help, like, we're here to help do that as well. And during the booking process, reached out to some resources and was able to get some resources that would then be sent down to the jail to help this young woman. But she wrote a note on the fax that was sent by our office to the jail so that this woman could have this information. So this was not anything that was left out for staff to find. Sometimes you get a read receipt and it sends a copy back of what you sent. And what she wrote at the bottom was, I'm truly rooting for your success. I know it's a tough season right now, but keep your head up and reach out to those resources to help get you back on your feet. In case no one has told you lately, you have got this and I believe in you. These are the people that we are hiring. So when we say that we are not just going to hire people to put butts in seats, we're not kidding. And it's not just me, it's not just the deputy chief that says that, but our line officers believe that too. They are stressed. I mean, again, we've talked about a little bit of what's going on with us and issues in the community, but they believe in having the right people. So I appreciate the support that council has given, and that we are plussing up our numbers, and what HR has been giving us incredibly regularly to make sure that we're having these oral boards, but we are bringing on the right people that have the right heart for this and the right for our community. So thank you.
All right, Chief.
Chief, do you have any update on what's been going on in Olympia regarding the pursuit? Last week I heard there was further discussion, and then there was a proposal to kick the can down the road another year with statistics.
I'm aware of that. I was not able to attend the meeting on Friday because I was out of town. I know that has been a proposal. Ms. Archer, I don't know if you were tracking on that any more than I was.
My understanding is it's stalled, so I don't know if it's able to move forward at this point.
Yeah, I know WASPIC pushed back pretty hard on we need to examine the problem for 2 years and then come up with a solution. Whether or not that means any change this legislative session, I have no idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Ms. Wallace.
I don't have anything, but the mayor did give me something he wanted me to read to you guys. Should take about 20 minutes. Would that be okay?
Move to adjourn the next meeting.
Second.
No, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're at our final citizens comment period. There's no one in the audience here personally. Is there anybody online?
There is not.
Nobody here online either. We do not have an executive session planned for this evening. So City Council, do you have anything for the good of the order?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day.
Councilperson Clausen?
Just one comment that I want to compliment you on your job that you did tonight, so.
Well, thank you for that. Anything else? Councilperson Rose of Happy.
I'd like to thank the council because the mayor continues to say this over and over again, but we respect each other. And tonight, we had a discussion on an item that is fairly not controversial, but can be. With COVID, we handled it professionally with a little bit of humor, and I appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons I've been on the council, is because we do treat each other with dignity and respect. So thank you all.
Completely agree.
Agreed, yeah. Anyone else? All right, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. This meeting is adjourned at 7:08.